Yes, Todd, the best travel agent in the world. Listen, you know that beach resort we just planned? You're gonna have to cancel that. Yeah, we're not going anywhere near a beach for the foreseeable future. Move us into a log cabin. Nothing ever bad happens in those, right? Right? What's going on, you guys? James here with another real review, and today I'm so excited to finally talk about director M. Night Shyamalan's Old. Thank you so much to Universal for giving us the chance to watch this in person in an IMAX theater with amazing sound, a huge screen, and it definitely does add to this film just a little bit. Now, the film itself is, well, it's very mysterious, so I don't want to give too much away, so from this point forward, no spoilers at all, guys. The film is about a family who takes a tropical holiday vacation and discovers a secluded beach where they are relaxing for a few hours before something causes them and the other guests to age rapidly. And now they gotta figure out how the heck to get out of there, and yes, there are times where I felt so claustrophobic during this film, and then there are other moments that made me scratch my head. Now, before I get into that and tell you whether or not this movie works for me, or if it's one of M. Night Shyamalan's worst films, if it is your first time here at the channel, guys, welcome to Real James, where I talk about movies that are like this all the time. So if you don't want to miss out, go ahead and hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, y'all, and get loud in the comments when you do see this movie this weekend, and let me know what you think of the film. Is it one of his better films for you, or if it's on your lower list of M. Night Shyamalan films? Don't be afraid to let me know too. Alrighty, y'all, well, you know what? It's time to get into this film and dive into what I liked about the movie. And honestly, guys, before I sat down in my seat for Old, I was already interested in the story based on the trailers, and I'm happy to say that the actual story of the final product is still pretty intriguing. The idea that time is sped up on a certain part of this beach and these guests are trying to figure a way out and work together because they're all relatively strangers to one another is incredibly interesting. I love the mystery behind everything and trying to piece it together and figure it out for myself as the movie went on. I wasn't surprised that this is the one thing that worked for me the most, because in M. Night Shyamalan movies, I'm always so interested to see how the payoff is after all of that build-up, and we'll talk about that more, but let's just say this is definitely an M. Night Shyamalan film through and through. And the one thing about his movies is he knows how to build atmosphere, and I do love that the direction at times and the score in this film really do help bring this movie up another notch for me. M. Night Shyamalan has a certain identity to his films that is very recognizable. He has this style that is unabashedly his own, and he sacrifices it for hardly anyone. That voice is definitely present in this movie, and I do love the fact that he is just fully committed to telling this story. And it's not exactly original because it is based on a graphic novel, but still, I do think that this movie is one of the more unique films I've seen this year. And once we get to the beach, that's when the movie gets into another gear and the actual suspense to the film is felt. And that tension is due in large part to the score by Trevor Gureckis, who actually has a really decent bit of composition here, and I love the fact that the music is never overbearing and it's never the main character, but it's lingering in the background, and it just kind of knows when to crescendo at the right time, and when it stays low, I kind of felt a little weird, like I was getting goosebumps every now and then, but see, that speaks to the atmosphere again that's being built in this movie. And when it comes to the actual look and feel to this film and how it's shot, it made a difference in both a good and a bad way. But for the sake of positivity, we'll talk about how the cinematography was okay in this film, and honestly, I do love the fact that there were some tracking shots here that never cut away from the tension being built on screen. So when you start to see other characters recognize their friends or their family members and they're aging, the film is just always sticking with the reaction of one of those family members, and it's never cutting away. Instead, we're getting long, drawn-out shots, and I really did appreciate that. And then there's a clever use of point of view in that second half of the film, where we see a very intense scene through the blurred eyes of another character. This, for me, is when the cinematography was at its best, and like I said, it's both good and bad in this film, and we'll talk about why it doesn't work too well later on in this review. Now, when it comes to the acting, guys, I really enjoyed two performances here, and that's from Alex Wolff, who was in Hereditary and finds himself playing Trent, who's age 15 in this film, and then Thomasin McKenzie, who's playing Maddox at age 16. Both really deliver, and they both have amazing chemistry in this film. They're able to capture the innocence to their role, keeping with the persona of their younger selves, and both of them as brother and sister was a great pairing. And they both add a lot of authenticity to this movie, whenever Trent is feeling some sort of pain, I was feeling for him. And when Maddox was lost and she was so frazzled, I was confused and also a little bit claustrophobic in those moments where I felt like the walls were closing in on me and the character. And that's the very important thing about both of their performances. They were the only two to make me feel something. They're clear standouts for me here, and I love when they were both on screen and given time to shine. But with all of that said, guys, we gotta get into some negatives because Old is a movie that doesn't necessarily bring it all together for me. Let's begin with the writing because it's very, very rough here, guys. Now, M. Night Shyamalan not only directed the film, but he also wrote the screenplay and adapted it from a graphic novel called Sandcastle, so the foundation of the story is there, and all that's left is to fill in the blanks for film, right? Well, unfortunately, the dialogue served up to our actors is incredibly unnatural here, and sadly, it's what sinks the film. Every conversation was incredibly stiff, it was forced, and it never really flowed for me. Nothing was fluid about this film, and there wasn't really a cadence to the movie, and honestly, every actor sounded like they were reading their lines for the very first time. There's also this over-reliance on our characters continually explaining who they are and their profession. I mean, it sounded so odd to me. There's this weird formula where every character has to say, I'm so-and-so and I'm a blank. Like, it's ad-libs, just fill in everything and you can probably figure out half the film's script. But that doesn't really work for me because I understand this isn't supposed to be one of those top-tier bits of screenplay, but come on, you gotta give more than that because it just breaks a lot of the immersion. And that's honestly one of my biggest issues here. For all of the work M. Night does outside of our characters and the score that builds that atmosphere, all of that immersion is broken once our characters try to carry scenes. The best bit of writing came packaged within a quippy one-liner between Aaron Pierre and Nikki Amuka Bird, where they have this very funny moment together, but it's actually clever, and it felt like at that moment, oh my gosh, M. Night finally cracked the code. He is getting somewhere with the screenplay, but unfortunately, that's about the only bit of quality writing I can tell you is found in this film. And that does bring us, guys, to my next negative, which is the acting. Unfortunately for Old, I don't think the acting here was strong enough to carry this nearly 2-hour movie. Gael Garcia Bernal plays the father, Guy, who is usually paired up with his wife, Prince, played by Vicky Krieps. I had this feeling that both of them were at some point gonna just break free, but honestly the script held them both back. Whenever they spoke to one another and their children, it never felt real, and it was so forced yet again, which makes me think that they were almost directed to act this way. Even characters that were given those compelling moments like Rufus Sewell as Charles, a doctor, I feel like it could have been handled in a better way, but instead, not even he could break free from the script. It's almost like everyone was being held back. And it just makes me disappointed that they wasted this cast, guys, for the most part, including some awesome actors that I really was hoping would be utilized much better. Both Abby Lee and Ken Leung come to mind here, including Aaron Pierre and Nikki Amuka Bird. All of them, they just are so good, guys, in almost every project I see them in. And then when they step into the world of Old, well, let's just say the movie's not on their side. And another thing, remember when I was praising the cinematography here, guys? Well, it also hurts the movie more often than not. The way certain shots are framed here is just mind-boggling. It feels very unorthodox, but not in a good way. And then there are certain times where I just kind of got tired of the cinematography itself. I spent so much time wondering what in the world was trying to be captured on screen versus what I should have been worrying about in a tense moment. There are also these very weird close-up shots where the camera just pulls in very tightly to our characters, and then I'm left wondering, why are you framing our characters this way? Why are half of our characters' faces hanging off the screen? And if a character is screaming, if we're led to believe that something horrific is happening, why are you not showing it? And I understand you have to leave things off to the side where it builds that bit of suspense, but the camera work was so awkward here that I wasn't thinking about the suspense. Instead, I was thinking about why this movie was filmed this way. So overall, you guys, Old isn't the worst of M. Night Shyamalan's movies, but it definitely isn't among his better projects. This movie has all the potential in the world to be a very fun summertime thriller where you do get some horrific moments, but overall you're left wondering what the heck happens by the end. But instead, this experience feels way too bogged down by its choppy script, unnatural performances, and a really bad payoff to all of that build-up. That third act really didn't work for me, you guys, and I never had that aha moment where I thought, oh my gosh, this payoff is worth all the build-up. Instead, I kind of felt hollow at the end. I had high hopes for Old, you guys, and I was rooting for the film as it tried to cross that finish line, but by the end credits I found myself really disappointed in this movie. I'm not even sure that I could recommend this movie to you at full price. Honestly, if you see it on a cheap Tuesday or a matinee showing, you might be better off. But guys, if you were excited going into this film, I do recommend you temper your expectations, and if you weren't excited for the movie, well, it's probably going to be everything you thought it would be. So there you have you guys, that's my real review of Old, a movie that has so many different pieces that might work together, but it just couldn't execute at the end. So if you enjoyed that review, guys, don't forget to hit the big red button below, subscribe to the channel, and tap on that bell, y'all, and hit the thumbs up button if you are a fan of M. Night Shyamalan, or if you just enjoyed this video. And hey, don't forget to get loud down below in the comments and let me know what you thought of Old. Did it work for you? Did it not? And is it one of the, well, more disappointing films of the year? Because I know it is for me. Alrighty, y'all. Again, thanks so much for watching, and I'll catch you at the next screening. And I'm so proud of myself for not using a pun about time. Yeah, I just feel like those jokes have gone old already. Dang it.